Welcome to today's Explainer. We are diving into a seriously fascinating story of transformation. When we look at a modern titan of industry, it's so easy to just see the massive success, right? The rockets, the cars. But what we're unpacking today shows an immense contrast between the billionaire innovator we know now and the incredibly vulnerable boy he once was back in South Africa. Imagine being bullied so badly that you literally end up in a hospital. This isn't just a metaphor, guys. This was a severely dark period early on in his life, and it instantly establishes the profound physical adversity he faced. It's a shocking reality, but it really grounds our understanding of what his childhood was actually like. Now, add to that trauma a sheer leap into the totally unknown. Imagine leaving your home country with almost nothing. We're talking no safety net, no billionaire parents waiting overseas to fund your life, absolutely no powerful connections. Just a drastic, crazy leap driven entirely by raw ambition. And then, imagine risking every single dollar you've ever earned. And not just once, but over and over again. This early sequence really sets up the central theme here: immense risk-taking. Honestly, most people would have thrown in the towel way before getting to this point. But that relentless comfort with risk, that's exactly what laid the groundwork for Tesla, SpaceX, satellite internet, and all those huge breakthroughs in AI. So let's go back a bit. Born on June 28, 1971, in Pretoria, South Africa, young Elon Musk's world looked, well, very different from his peers. While the other kids were outside playing sports and just being kids, Elon was indoors. He was completely disappearing into science fiction, physics, engineering, and history. We're talking reading for nearly 10 hours a day, devouring entire encyclopedias just to find answers. Books were absolutely his escape. Section 1. The Crucible of Isolation, the boy nobody understood. Because he was so introverted and frankly just misunderstood by his classmates, he became a massive target. The details of his school experience are truly harrowing. This wasn't your typical run-of-the-mill schoolyard teasing. He endured relentless mocking and public humiliation, and one day it escalated into severe violence when he was actually pushed down a flight of stairs and beaten so badly he required medical treatment. But here's what's absolutely crucial to understand about how he processed all this. Instead of creating paralyzing fear, surviving this childhood violence basically forged his armor. Think about it. Today, he faces massive criticism from demanding investors, fierce competitors, and millions of people on the internet. But having already survived a brutal childhood, he'd already built the psychological defenses to handle almost anything the world could throw at him. Section 2. The First Spark. Discovering Computers. At this point, he was about to evolve from a boy who simply consumed information into someone who created it. And what's truly mind-blowingly remarkable here is his age. 10. Just 10 years old. In an era with zero YouTube tutorials or online courses, he discovered computers entirely on his own, armed with absolutely nothing but a basic programming manual. The speed of his progress was just insane. He read that manual, and instead of just playing games like every other kid, he taught himself how they were actually made. Within days, he was writing his own code and built a whole video game called Blaster. And then he took it a step further and actually sold that code to a computer magazine. No way, right? A monumental shift had just occurred for him. An idea inside his head had literally turned into tangible value. Now, the payment for Blaster wasn't exactly life-changing wealth, but the lesson absolutely was a game changer. This quiet little moment in his room was the definitive birth of his entrepreneurial mindset. Section 3. Leaving everything behind. Chasing opportunity. By his late teens, his ambition had completely outgrown his isolated environment. So at age 17, facing mandatory military service in South Africa, he made a really drastic move. Believing the absolute biggest opportunities were in North America, he flew to Canada. He had to rely on relatives and took whatever work he could find, doing everything from cleaning dirty boiler rooms to just grueling physical labor. It definitely wasn't glamorous, but every single paycheck was a deliberate step forward. His mindset during this grueling period is perfectly captured by a quote from our source. He wasn't chasing comfort. He was chasing opportunity. He fully embraced the physical hardship, because he knew deep down it was just the necessary price he had to pay for his future. Section 4. The American Dream. Innovation Hub. Eventually, all that sweat and hard work paid off, and he finally reached the United States to study economics and physics. But surprisingly, even in college, that sense of isolation continued. While your typical college students spent their free time partying and socializing, Elon was spending countless hours intensely discussing things like technology, energy, space, and the actual future of human civilization. He was well into adulthood, yet still profoundly separated from the typical path of his peers. And just think about the massive concepts he was hyper-focused on back then. Colonizing Mars, electric cars, artificial intelligence. It's noted that his peers literally laughed at him. And not necessarily out of malice, but simply because, back then, these ideas sounded utterly ridiculous to the average student. It sounded like pure sci-fi. But amidst all that chaotic ambition and the laughter of his peers, he anchored himself with one single guiding question. What problem is important enough that nobody else is solving? That singular focus is what allowed him to channel those seemingly impossible ideas into a real, tangible mission. So he now stood at the absolute precipice of his career with just a laptop, a brother who believed in him, and an idea. He had no fortune, zero powerful investors, and literally no track record. But armed with the incredible resilience forged in a brutal childhood, he was about to create Zip2, which was the very first company that started his entire empire. As we wrap up this explainer, it's wild to look at the immense resilience required to go from a hospitalized, bullied kid to a pioneer of the future. It really leaves us with a fascinating question to ponder. If you had to endure the ultimate crucible, and you asked yourself his guiding question, what world-changing problem would you try to solve?